Today, we will turn our attention to the ecology of the brass dragon, the endlessly curious storytellers of the desert sands. Among the metallic dragons, there are none more eager to meet new faces, share tales, or engage in lengthy discussions with anyone they encounter about everything from ancient history to the most trivial of observations. Yet, behind their cheerful personalities and seemingly endless chatter lies a remarkably strange draconic species, one whose biology, culture, and place within the world are every bit as fascinating as the rumours that surround them. So to truly understand these charismatic yet selfish dragons, we must journey into the scorching deserts they call home. Hi, my name is Tom, and this is the ecology of brass dragons. When it comes to studying dragonkind, one of the first things you might notice is their aloof nature. As beings that live for millennia and exist on a wholly different food chain from our own, these marvellous creatures are rather hard for a commoner to empathise with. Dragons are on a higher step of the proverbial ladder. Their average individual, no matter the species, is capable of either benevolence or malevolence, on scales that the mortal mind simply cannot comprehend. While a person might be able to communicate and come to an understanding with a dragon, from the point of view of either individual, the other's mind is as foreign as it gets. Because of these differences, it is nearly impossible to truly understand a draconic, let alone an entire species. Luckily, not every kind is as mysterious and aberrant in its thinking. For example, we have the metallic family, which is quite extroverted and more down to earth than other dragon groups. Among them, the brass dragon is a perfect example of a species one could call almost humanoid because of its psychology. If it isn't obvious by now, the opening section of this ecological study is a dry joke about how brass dragons take forever to give a simple explanation. Either way, let us properly begin. Brass dragons, much like every other metallic family member, embody one of the core aspects of Bahamut, their creator. While silvers might have taken his social aspect, gold's the desire to right every wrong, and bronze is the ideal of permanently destroying all evil, brass dragons were granted by far one of his most infamous traits: the need to excessively socialize with everyone they come across. This species loves the sound of their own voice, especially when they can share it with other people. No matter the race, or even if it's sentient or sapient, they will continuously poke and prod to get a reaction. Since they naturally cannot stop themselves from going on and on and on for days at a time, the listening party can do nothing but the occasional or "I see," or "Oh, really?" For anyone trapped within this discussion loop, save for a witty distraction, the best thing you could do is buckle up and wait until the dragon is done. If you were to try and leave the conversation or ignore the dragon before it could even start, nothing is stopping the specimen from grabbing you and forcing you to speak with it either way. Some individuals go so far as to dig you into the sand so that you actually cannot escape. More or less, to survive such encounters, manners and patience are key. Speaking of patience, brass dragons are by far the most calm and collected individuals. While they might be insulted just as easily as any dragon, it is rare for them to seek retribution of any kind. Rather than attacking, the average specimen would rather hurl a few insults back and then leave if the disrespect continues. To them, wasting their time is as big a crime as it gets, and killing someone for being rude would waste even more of it. Granted, this aspect of its nature can be ignored if the particular insult is foul enough, or if somebody was to steal from them. Either action will result in the dragon finally snapping and going on a killing spree, including wiping out whole towns if needs be. But they will at least make sure that most of the people they blow up or cut to ribbons probably deserved it. One thing I must note is that while most individuals might chat for the sake of sharing knowledge or wondering about a creature's perspective on a matter, some just do it to inflate their ego. Many scholars think that, on average, the brass dragon is selfless in its thirst for socialization, but they are actually a tad selfish, thinking that they themselves are the best thing you've ever come across since sliced bread. A lesser known fact about brass dragons is that they also serve as mercenaries. For the right sum, they can be convinced to act as warriors, diplomats, or whatever you might need them to be. Of course, this is assuming that the dragon in question is willing to do it. Either way, any employed specimens will go out of their way to respect the bounds of a contract. Like any other prideful creature, when they give their word, their entire reputation and name are at stake. Like every other group of draconics, we also have oddities in the form of evil brass dragons. However, honestly, I would not call them evil as much as they are benign. The only real difference between the two groups is that one will just eat any contractor and take all the wealth for themselves. To me, that sounds no different than manipulating the work market. Technically speaking, adventurers could thank cruel brasses for the high payouts they get from every quest. When it comes to their breath weapons, it is rather interesting. As stated many times before, each of the 5 main metallics, and maybe some of the lesser known kinds, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, have 2 distinct breath weapons. One in the form of a gas, and another elemental that parallels their chromatic counterparts. This particular type of draconic breathes a 27-meter long line of fire. While it might be somewhat shorter range than other fire spewers, it is actually surprisingly more accurate. Although the elemental breath weapon is used for combat and hunting, the gas breath is a more benign one, assuming that it doesn't hit you at the worst opportunity. On average, most species with twin breaths tend to value their primary as the elemental one. But in the case of brass dragons, this is actually the opposite. These dragons are non-confrontational by nature. Similar to silver dragons, they would rather talk things out, rather than fight to the death. As one could imagine, using fire is not a smart idea when trying to calm down a situation, or trying to escape via non-lethal means. So for these dragons, their sleeping gas comes in handy 90% of the time. Moving on to their appearance, a brass dragon can easily be identified by their armoured plate crest, reminiscent of a plowshare. Their wings, similar in form to those of oceanic manta rays, can also serve as a reference point. Despite their scales normally being identifiable by their brass colouring, hence the draconic naming convention, I would advise against it. Young individuals are brown in coloration, the metallic sheen and lighter hues only appearing during their teen years. Even then, you have a middle period where they are a mottled mess between 2 stages. If this is not enough, and you still cannot separate them from the other 2 similar looking species, you can either try to smell them, or look into their eyes. Brass dragons have a very specific scent, reminiscent of hot sand or heated metal, while their eyes turn a metallic grey over time. Lastly, among the main metallic family, these draconics are also the smallest and weakest, perhaps as an equivalent to the white dragons of Tiamat. Still, despite being diminutive in stature for true dragons, they are still dragons, so please do not take them lightly. Brass Dragon Society is a particularly funny one in my opinion. They are so obsessed with talking, and of course, being the ones doing the talking, so much so that 2-sided conversations annoy them quite a bit, especially if the individual they're engaging with loves to yap just as much. As one might guess from this quick little descriptor, they really hate spending time with other brass dragons. To them, it would be like a non-stop headache, trying to fight over who gets to talk more than the other. As such, the average brass dragon chooses to live in isolation, save for mated couples who can tolerate one another. Encounters between members of the same species rarely happen, instead using magical means, or dedicated underlings to speak via letters. In terms of society, this is pretty much where it begins and also where it ends. I guess there is the fact that they can also gather at times in order to work together, but that's something every dragon does. Well, all those who aren't social pariahs anyway. Most of their actual culture and political intrigue takes the form of large network chains and plenty of hidden connections. Similar to green dragons, they are fans of a little subterfuge, gaslighting, and information gathering. While they may not go out of their way to look for new tea, they do invest in building a framework to have others handle the information gathered in their stead. After all, how else could they get enough information to continue blabbering so much? Because of their rather relaxed lifestyle, and the fact that many of their jobs are automated through having others do it for them, brass dragons have plenty of time to explore and wander around. In their free time, they do particularly enjoy toying with caravan paths, stopping them at random intervals to ask them random questions. Since these people are probably well travelled, there is bound to be something interesting to them. In the event that chatting becomes boring, or there is no mercenary work they fancy doing, there is one last option for a brass dragon to pursue: finding a warm rock in the middle of the desert and sunbathing until they feel their social candle has become lit again. Similar to their only well-known personality trait, sleeping under the hot sun can take a long time. If you were to prod them and wake them up, then their complaining will get longer and more verbose the more you annoy them. This species is a perfect example of how narrow the number of livable habitats can get. Brass dragons are acclimated only to the hottest and driest regions, such as arid deserts and savannas. While you could, in theory, find them in very warm forests, the temporary heat wave within these habitats would eventually force these dragons to follow the temperature changes, therefore unwillingly turning migratory. When it comes to rain and cold snaps, brass dragons attempt to do everything within their power to avoid them, be it digging deeper or falling into torpor for the duration of the weather period. They are, for lack of a better term, repelled by it. Sadly, there is no specific knowledge regarding why heat is so important to the brass dragons. While it could very well just be a preference, it could also be an important aspect of their biology. On Earth, reptiles, among other groups, are known for their cold-blooded nature. Due to various evolutionary factors, they have never developed the ability to regulate their body temperature internally. This has resulted in the adaptation to warmer climates, where the ambient temperature is responsible for both cooling and heating. As one might guess, warm rocks are usually used by many reptiles to speed up the process, absorbing heat trapped within the stone and making them into ideal sunbathing spots. In prior studies where we have explored more in-depth biological aspects of true dragons, their blood was by far the most intriguing. Depending on their elemental breath and general climate, their blood temperature tends to follow suit. Draconics that live in Arctic and subarctic environments have freezing blood, while those that dwell within deserts and volcanoes tend to have sizzling and boiling blood. While this is a personal interpretation, I believe that brass dragons have a relatively narrow temperature threshold. Living in regions that are too hot or too cold can prevent them from heating their blood to an appropriate level. As a result, they may face health issues and ultimately death if they stray too far from their preferred climate. Brass dragons have a distinctive preference when it comes to their lairs. Although they enjoy sandy environments, they do not dig in the sand. Instead, they prefer to create their burrows in rocky formations such as outcrops, cliffs, gorges, or canyons. Regardless of their chosen location, they ensure that their lairs are always well lit. As an example, sunroofs are a common structural piece in any home. Similarly, their primary entrance always faces the direction of the rising sun. This way, a brass dragon can maximize the temperature, light, and heating that it receives. The dragon I have visited for this particular study has actually given me plenty of insight into how brass dragons assemble their lairs. Apparently, most specimens are talented masons. Because of this rather peculiar trait, the average lair of a brass dragon is closer to a work of art than just a cozy home, where everything down to the floors, walls, and ceilings is carefully carved and maintained by the individual. A prominent reason behind this particular hobby, besides their good taste in decorum, is the architecture of older civilizations. Just like most other metallic dragons, brasses go out of their way to gather parts of decrepit cities. But instead of utilizing them as building materials, they will use them instead as a point of reference as they carve their home into shape. Some individuals, on occasion, go as far as to embed magic into their craft. Statues that at first glance might look normal could very well be animated constructs awaiting an order. Moving to their hordes, brass dragons actually have a very odd way in which they distribute their wealth. From their point of view, keeping all of it within a singular structure is illogical. A single event could very well destroy everything they have worked for. While the bulk of it might remain within their Lair's treasury room, a good chunk of it will be dispersed across their territory in the form of burrowed packages. In regions where bellowing winds are too strong, the problem of dunes shifting becomes very apparent. There are plenty of stories in which a dragon might have carefully placed a portion of their hoard in a sand pile, only for the wind, decades later, to move it. Because of that, some settlement or wandering merchant may happen upon it and take it for themselves. So far, it seems brass dragons have yet to ruminate on this issue. A dragon knows where every package is placed, so for what possible reason would a mortal take something that didn't belong to them? Especially when it's a huge pile of treasure in the middle of the desert. I mean, that's just ridiculous. As for the contents of these hoards, this species is renowned for its large collection of handcrafted items. Be they made of wood, bone, or fabric, they are infatuated with products made from organic materials. Anything related to weaving, such as textile production, is by far their favourite. And as for their preference in gemstones, most of their collections tend to be a mixture of orange, yellow and brown stones. Since very few other kinds of dragons collect these, brasses have an easier time in gathering them. In addition, recent generations have begun collecting various objects and works of art, be they baroqued with brass or fashioned entirely out of it. From bells, busts, braziers, and other weird keepsakes, there is pretty much nothing that they wouldn't throw into their hoard piles. Oddly enough, these new additions to their hoards have caused them to begin talking with inanimate objects. From figures within a painting to even the likes of a lamp, a brass dragon goes out of their way to name and give a personality to everything it sees. In certain cases, entire hordes can be considered as individuals, the dragon choosing to talk to them like old friends. On occasion, the personality of these hordes can be rude to the brass dragon owning it, resulting in shouting matches and fighting between the two. Other times, these creatures might fly to a hidden cache to get the opinion of a particular pile of treasure. Despite not being specialized in any form of psychology or medicine, this does not sound particularly healthy. Like there is talking to inanimate objects in the same way that a child may speak to their favorite stuffed animal, but that is completely different to naming and giving background stories to 141 dolphins in an oil painting. There is a possibility that modern dragons might have spoken so much that they've actually gone insane. Or they are under some form of spell, where they imagine every item is awakened and becomes sentient. I personally cannot tell, and honestly, I'm a little bit afraid to ask. In the case of their offspring, brass dragons lay anywhere between 2 and 5 eggs. Apparently, this seems to be a standard for metallic dragons. Older Draconomicons seem to generalize this ballpark when direct information is pure speculation at best. In order to hatch, each egg must remain in an open flame or be incubated at a temperature of 60 degrees Celsius, the same requirements as gold and red dragon's eggs, but only for a shorter period of 480 days. Upon hatching, young brass dragons are raised under the care of both parents, with each wormling being taught that, until adulthood, the best way to overcome danger is through hiding within sand dunes. Only after reaching a veritable age where their body is strong enough to fight back, can these dragons use their smaller, agile builds to their advantage in combat. I do need to note that sometimes, brass wormlings that live closer to civilized regions will, on occasion, fall in with a bad crowd, their social nature leading them to join brigands and similar groups, using them as meat shields when they fight. In terms of ecological impact, brass dragons are yet another perfect representation of mindful adaptation. Due to a lack of water within the regions in which they thrive, coupled with the vehement dislike of rainy periods, these dragons have adapted to requiring very little food or water. While they are capable omnivores, which on occasion hunt camels, antelopes and goats, their primary method of obtaining nutrition is the consumption of morning dew. This is actually an intentional choice because of their deep knowledge about their environment. Savannas and deserts have far fewer species and overall individuals within their ecosystems. Because of this particular fact, the death of a single member at the wrong time could very well put the whole food chain at risk. Even a small-sized dragon, such as brasses, require a large quantity every week. Really, in order to prevent any lasting impact, they may choose to eat the animals of a caravan or the mount of an adventurer. While some might pay for it, others could very well just flee the scene after nomming down on someone's horse. On the other hand, their impact upon society is rather weird. Technically speaking, brass dragons do not have any lasting impact on the greater scheme of things. They may impart knowledge to many people to both educate and praise their own humbleness, or perhaps join in mercenary bands for fun and a little bit of extra wealth, although on paper, neither should have lasting effects, and if anything, their mercenary work should be the thing that's problematic. Strangely, it's their nature as chatterboxes that is the actual issue. Since they base themselves close to areas with heavy traffic, they will go out of their way to slow down caravans so they can have a nice chat with as many people as possible. Deadlines will not be met. Food carriages will definitely be delayed, and any well-oiled infrastructure revolving around logistics will completely collapse with the constant shift of timelines. If you were to try and warn the dragon about it, they will probably either ignore you, not hear it because they are too focused on speaking, or get upset and leave in a huff. Honestly, considering the fact that many evil chromatics have done plenty more for lesser results is incredibly hilarious. As much as it is a tragedy, there is some crude humour in a small, hyper-reactive dragon causing more damage to the economy than the largest and most powerful of draconic tyrants. Hi, my name is Tom, and I'm the narrator for the channel. First of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Alex, our editor, and Axe, our researcher and scriptwriter, without whom the video you just enjoyed would not be possible. This channel is made by humans for humans, which means that we read all the books ourselves, we write and research the scripts ourselves, and we record everything ourselves. There is no AI used at any point during our process, and that's the way we'd like it to stay. If you'd like to help us create more content, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help out, and the support that you guys have shown to us already has been absolutely insane. So we'd love to continue making videos for you, diving into all sorts of stuff within D&D Ecology, and maybe even a few other RPG topics. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.